atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a common rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to a brand new episode of Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me as always, my lovely co-host.
Hello, I am the always enthusiastic Rex.
Rex, you are the opposite of enthusiastic. You are unenthusiastic.
What do you mean by that? I am the most exaggerated, most enthusiastic, most obnoxious person around.
Are you trying to mock me right now?
No.
Are you saying I'm obnoxious?
No.
I'll have you know I'm the opposite of obnoxious. I am unobnoxious.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's true.
Yes. That's what they all say.
Yes. Speaking of unobnoxious, this podcast now has been going for like 3 or 4 weeks now without a break.
God damn. We're insane, I swear.
Nah, we're just normal.
No, we are insane.
We are the new Kaiju
insane.
Weekly.
You are insane,
I'm not insane.
You are definitely insane.
I'd like to say that we're the brand new Kaiju Weekly. The weekly podcast. I don't remember what the slogan is. I haven't listened to a Kaiju Weekly episode in so long.
Damn. Fake fan.
I dare you to even, name one thing they did.
Yeti.
What about the Yeti?
They covered the Yeti.
They did cover actually, no, they never covered the Yeti.
What?
That was the joke. They never covered the Yeti, but they were synonymous with Yeti Giant of the 20th century. You are the biggest fake fan.
Gaslit?
No, I swear to God. Travis did appear on, I think it's GargantuCast, to talk about Yeti Giant of the 20th century, but they never covered the movie on Kaiju Weekly. You're fact-checking me right now, aren't you?
I'm not, but I feel like I've been lied to this whole time, you know?
Nah, not really.
That's like the whole thing.
You just don't listen to Kaiju podcasts.
I do every now and again.
Name one Kaiju podcast you listen to.
Kaiju Conversation. I have to listen to that every time a new episode is recorded.
I'm sure you just love that.
Oh boy, it's horrific. the two hosts on there are just some of the worst, most spiteful people I've ever had to listen to.
I hear they're so spiteful that they post an episode and you immediately block them on Twitter, all of their accounts. Now, there's some jokes behind that one that I feel like we can't cover on air because it might get a little airing our dirty laundry.
I mean, your dirty laundry, I just find it funny.
What dirty laundry? It's not one day I go on Discord and they're like, look at this tweet. And I go to the tweet and it says I'm blocked. And I've never talked to this person a day in my life, but I know who they are.
That's wonderful.
And all I can think of is we just talked about how Godzilla vs. Kong is literally the worst thing ever in the history of the world for 5 hours.
And we were right.
We are right. That's the thing. We were right. Speaking of we were right, we were very wrong about Gridman Universe doing good.
Okay, look, I think we had only the day one numbers at the time.
I don't even think we had really talked about it. But I know when we did our 2023 upcoming stuff, we talked about how it's probably going to do well because the anime have been really well received.
I mean, hey, it may not be doing well at the box office, but it is, reception-wise, it is doing amazing. So
it's literally doing the numbers of Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle.
Oh, it's a bit better than that. It's not that bad. It's not far off, but you know,
it's slightly better.
I think. Actually, I might be confusing it with numbers of something else. Maybe it's worse. I need to check.
last time I saw it was like doing the exact same numbers as City on the Edge of Battle, and like,
well, look, it's only been out for like a week,
and it's already dropped out of the top 10.
Yeah,
which is sad.
True.
Like, is this Tsuburaya's first big blunder in a while? Technically,
I don't know, but it is kind of a shame knowing that they weren't necessarily looking to end the Gridman series here either, so...
I wish I knew what that means, but I still have to watch, like, literally everything.
Yeah, you should watch Gridman.
Yes, I agree. But I'm going
Gridman
to...
and Dino-Zenon, because Dino-Zenon the GOAT.
Look, I'll eventually get there. Like, I just found a way to get back into Ultraman 80.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, I'm going to watch X amount of episodes and then call Nathan every week and talk about them. That's the only one,
nice.
like, I'm sorry, but 80 just, oh my god. I just can't do it. I don't know why. I blame Taro. I blame Ultraman Taro for my Ultraman 80 problems. Taro is such an awful series.
I mean, but you got through Leo.
Barely. The last, 20 episodes of Leo are some of the most boring Ultraman episodes of the 1970s.
Damn. That's sad.
It starts off solid, but the moment they, change the story, it just falls apart and becomes boring. I'd rather watch Iron King, which does everything Leo does but better.
Damn. Well, outside of 80, have you watched any other tokusatsu recently?
Normally you go first.
Well,
are we switching it up?
Yeah, we're switching it up.
Okay.
Because the opportunity was right there.
I don't think so, actually. So I was going to. I did get my Blu-ray copy of Minoru Kawasaki's Super Legend God Hikoza, which I watched about half of it. It's only 65 minutes long, but I was really tired that day. Believe it or not, I'm tired some days. And I got through half of it, and I just kind of phased out, and then I had to go pick up my best friend, so I couldn't finish it. Besides that, I don't remember watching any tokusatsu. I want to. I'm trying to find time, but also I have no time. I'm always busy. So it's kind of difficult for me to make that time.
Yeah.
How about you, Rex, though? Have you watched any tokusatsu lately?
Well, honestly, since the last episode, not very much.
Oh.
I've just powered through a bit. I've been powering through a bit of Black. I'm finally being introduced to Shadow Moon, which is very awesome. He's pretty cool. But yeah, outside of that, not too much. There was one movie I saw yesterday, I think, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you watched a movie too. I saw that we were watching a similar movie. I just don't remember what that movie was.
Are you trying to gaslight me into thinking I watched a movie yesterday, but I don't actually remember watching a movie yesterday?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not gaslighting you.
You're not?
No. I'm not.
Then what are you doing?
I'm just making a statement.
Are
I'm
you,
leaving
though?
the floor to you.
I feel like you're gaslighting me because I don't remember watching a movie yesterday.
Are you sure?
Hmm.
Do you not have even an inkling of memory?
Let's see. I remember us getting ready to record a podcast about something, and then my internet died. And it died for like 8 hours, so we actually never got to record a podcast.
Damn.
What was that over?
What was this one for then?
I don't know. I just did what the contract said.
Yes, the contract.
Hmm?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the contract.
Hmm? You know, the Kaiju Conversation co-host contract that we both signed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember signing that, yeah.
I did too. You know, I'm a little hungry. I'm kind of feeling some seafood.
Really now?
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite things to get's calamari. Like some calamari and marinara, just that's so good.
I've never had calamari, but I'm sure
You've
you're
not?
right. Not that I can recall.
Dude, you gotta get it. It's so good. It is so good.
Damn, that's wonderful.
Seafood's pretty good. I also like getting
I agree.
baby squid. When I go eat Chinese food, I always get baby squid off the grill. It's really good.
Damn. I think you just enjoy the suffering of children.
No, but I do love me a good love triangle story where people are suffering.
Oh, yeah. I mean, who doesn't? Love Exposure is the best film. Did you watch that finally?
No, but
What?
you know, I'm starting to recall. I watched the movie, and I think there was something about calamari in it too. And there was this love plot.
Yeah. That you see, like, that's cool and all, but like, you need to watch Love Exposure. It's the best. It's the best romance film about suffering and love.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it was that movie.
Why have we not covered Love Exposure on this podcast?
I want to say because
it's like the best kaiju film.
I want to say that because it's not actually kaiju or tokusatsu.
But like.
So I do know one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a movie from 2004.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's got a lot of fighting. It's got some crazy suits.
Yeah.
The main villain comes from the ocean, or not the villain, the hero. The main hero comes from the ocean.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a fun movie. At least that's what they were aiming for.
Oh, really?
Yes. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
No, you're going to have to spell it out for me and the audience at home.
Okay, so you start with the letter T, and then you get a letter H, and then a vowel. I think the vowel of E. So you have the, and let's go with a C.
Oh, I'm looking at my script, because the entire podcast is like entirely scripted. We're scripting out every single bit and gag here.
We're
right?
scripting.
Yeah. We scripted. Yeah.
We're scripting.
Yeah. Stop talking. And I see in the script there's like this film called The Calamari Wrestler, and I think I watched that.
I did as well, and
Whoa.
it is Kawasaki Month. It is Minoru Kawasaki Month here at Kaiju Conversation.
And this is like arguably, if like his biggest, most well-known film.
It was his first theatrical film, so
that too, yes.
So I'm just going to move on from the stupidity here.
Yes, I'm very sorry for you all.
And for once, it wasn't me that caused the stupidity. It was Rex.
Oh, well, it's your gag. It's your fault. Am I wrong, though?
I'm just going to move on from that statement.
Yeah, I'm right.
I'm not going to answer that. So, we are covering the 2004 film, The Calamari Wrestler, directed by Minoru Kawasaki. As mentioned, this was his first theatrical debut film. Prior to this, he really had only worked on some small, low-budget stuff. Of course, his Dead
Short
Ace.
films.
Mm-hmm. So, The Calamari
He even
Wrestler...
did a female prisoner movie.
Did he?
Sadly, not Scorpion.
Real?
Yeah,
I think
it's
I've
like
heard
one
of
of
it.
the rip-off franchises of female prisoner Scorpion.
Gotcha. I mean, that's kind of what he's known for. I mean, the Calamari Wrestler in of itself, its conception was based off of a 2003 British film titled Crust, which is about this guy who finds a shrimp and teaches him how to box. And from that kind of influenced the idea of animals like learning how to fight or do like sports.
Yeah.
And then Minoru Kawasaki kind of, I in a way, he kind of started doing his own genre of like animals doing human things. You have his work like Executive Koala, Calamari Wrestler, Kabuto Beetle, Goalkeeper Crab. Most recently, he did one called President Tanuki. So Kawasaki kind of loves this genre of like giving animals human talents.
Yeah.
And, you know, he started off with this film. And it's really important that I think we cover this because, as we've mentioned, this is Minoru Kawasaki Month here at Kaiju Conversation. And Calamari Wrestler kind of set the standard for Kawasaki's style and kind of what he did. And prior to this, we also covered a film in March that most Kaiju fans probably know by now, known as Death Kappa, which I will argue kind of established the kaiju parody films that Kawasaki would later become synonymous with.
Yeah.
So in the last 2 months, I really feel like we've covered the establishment for this new wave of independent kaiju cinema that has kind of taken the low budget scene, and I think people who could get a good idea and a good outlook on what the genre is from these two films. So I'm pretty excited that we get to talk about Calamari Wrestler here, dive into kind of some of the production and just talk about the film and kind of where it led Kawasaki and his journey through becoming a cult status director of sorts.
Where do you want to get started with this wild little film?
I don't know. Rex, where would you? I feel like you've been putting me in spots, so let me put you in the spotlight here. Where do you want to start with this kooky film that some people have said is the Muppets meet Godzilla?
Well, where do you think where did the madness of this come? You mentioned how the idea sort of was inspired by a 2003 British film. Were there any other interesting things? I know you sent me a fun screenshot of one of the actors from like behind the scenes material.
Well,
is there anything else interesting in there?
Well, so the thing about Minoru Kawasaki is when you look at his filmography, I mean, we've covered 2 films this April, and they were, The World Sinks Except Japan and Kaiju Mono.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that people can at least pick up from those 2 films is he likes to do parodies and he likes to do films that are ludicrous. They're nonsense. They don't they don't really...
They defy description.
Yes.
As one reviewer put it, I saw.
I mean, I as I listed off, he's done films like Goalkeeper Crab, which is about a crab that's a soccer goalkeeper. Kabuto Beetle is about a beetle that learns Kabuto.
He made a whole movie about how the entire world sunk, except for Japan.
Right.
Until it did.
Spoiler alert. President Tanuki is a movie about a tanuki, which is a yokai with interesting aspects, being the president of a company. Same with Executive Koala, a movie about a koala running a pickle company. So, I feel like the idea of rationalizing Kawasaki films is not something you can do, and that's by design. Kawasaki was heavily inspired by your more experimental films from the late 60s and early 70s. I know a film that he took influence from was, I believe it was Horrors of Malformed Men from 1968.
Oh, yeah.
The director of that, Kawasaki, was heavily influenced by. So is Shinya Tsukamoto. Both directors have very crazy and outlandish films in their works. One more extreme than the other. One took a more lighthearted approach, while the other took a more darker, grittier, adult approach.
Violent approach, yes.
So, I mean, we get to see Kawasaki begin this journey. And Calamari Wrestler, when talks started in October of 2003, it was almost kind of a joke. There was nobody interested in financing the film because the moment they were like, it's a movie about a squid wrestler, people would laugh and hang up.
Yeah.
Like, it was like the fact that we do the stupid gag where we don't know the movie each time. It's like that. It's like, oh my God, what is this? Like, why are we doing this again? People were like, what is this idea? Like, this is stupid. And for Kawasaki, like, I feel like now it's a little easier for him to get financing for this stuff because he is a cult status director. Like, people know him for doing
He's made
these.
a name for himself.
Yeah. And it all started from Calamari Wrestler. Kawasaki co-wrote the script. It took him 2 weeks to write it. And, when they ended up getting financial backing, overall it took about 9 months from conception to release in July of 2004. And in the film, it's really... do you want to just go into the plot here? Because it's not like Kaiju Mono or World Sinks except Japan. It's like a proto-Kawasaki film, and I think that's one of the most interesting parts about it.
Yeah.
So, do you want to start us off with the story?
Okay. So, the film opens with a wrestling match between two, surprise, surprise, Japanese wrestlers, one of whom is played by the real wrestler Akira Ogami, who plays a character named Taguchi, who's like this up-and-coming wrestler who's just won his championship in this round. Crowd cheers, everyone's so happy for him. He's holding up the
belt.
Yes, he's holding up the belt in the air, and suddenly it's swiped away from him by a giant squid.
And I think as I mentioned, it's proto Kawasaki, and I think one of the best examples of that is the squid swipes it, and nobody's like questioning, like nobody says what the F is going on. Nobody says that.
Yeah. No one questions it. It's just there's a squid there.
There's a squid there, and they start fighting. That's what it leads to, is a maybe unfair match between the squid and our protagonist, or what appears to be our protagonist, who ends up being a side character.
Yeah. Which was a bit odd.
Yeah. So, and that's something I always appreciate about Japanese cinema, is they don't question. And in this film especially, I feel like they do question, but when they do, the answer is always, why are we questioning it? Like, we should go
Why
with
is there
this.
a squid? Yes, there is. Why is it fighting in the ring? Yes, it is. That's the best answer you're going to get.
And our squid ends up beating our... Did I already bring that up? How the squid beats our...
Yeah, he beats Taguchi.
And from there, you would think it would become a, like, story about how he trains to overcome the squid and beat him.
Yeah.
But it definitely does not go that way. And that is something that's very interesting, and I think that shows that Kawasaki is not your conventional storyteller. He doesn't follow your typical tropes, which is a very fresh and kind of welcomed aspect about his films that later would happen, and eventually they would become tropes of their own. But in context of Calamari Wrestler, it is something that is very welcomed, and I think we get a story that unfolds unlike anything else I've really watched.
Yeah.
So then the big question is, who is the squid? Who is the Calamari Wrestler?
He's suspiciously reminiscent of a previous wrestler whom had seemingly passed away, vanishing 3 years earlier for Taguchi to take the spotlight. But it's hard to get any word from him, as the squid and his
trainer?
Partners. Yeah, his trainer and partners seem to want to refuse to comment on any relation.
So I feel like the first maybe fourth of this film is solely just trying to build up this mystery while also explain the Calamari Wrestler. It's trying to create this interesting idea, while also establishing the world, which I love the exploits of the wrestler world. Like, everybody knows how that market is just filled with marketing. It's just marketing and stunts and gimmicks. And I love that. Like, they do not shy away from that. And I love that aspect of the film.
Oh, I love the guy who runs like the main wrestling company.
And they're always like what sells them is like, more tickets sold, whatever it is, do it.
Yeah.
And I think that adds, I mean, it feels like a satire in that regards, because they're going with everything. And it feels like something that you would see in the entertainment business, but that also helps the film accept what you're seeing on screen.
Yeah.
Because they're going with it, so you can go with it as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's an issue I have with some like American films where, there's always this need to just question and explain everything too much. And something that I can appreciate on foreign cinema, and especially the works of Kawasaki, is he just goes for it.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how wild it may seem, he'll just if it's written on his pages, he's going to go with it.
Right. Now, but I will say, I do like how they explain the character of the Calamari Wrestler. Like, they after they build up this mystery, they start to expand on that mystery to explain the details.
Yeah.
I must say, though, I'm not a fan of the voice. The voice is kind of a weird, in a not good sense to me.
Yeah, I was surprised by it. I got used to it as the film went on, but I was just like, that's what he sounds like? I didn't even kind of want him to have a voice. I kind of probably would have preferred him to just be a silent character. I thought that would maybe be a bit funnier.
Mm-hmm.
But
I also I feel like if he went silent, a lot of the jokes wouldn't land.
I mean, the jokes as they're written in the film, sure, but like Tokusatsu actors can be really funny through just their body language.
Right. And
you've got an experienced actor in the suit, so
right. Do you want to mention who that is and how their experience?
Yeah.
I know we've brought them up in the past episode, but it's always good to rehash that.
So Hurricane Ryu is a decently well-known suit actor, I'd say, who portrayed many kaiju within the Heisei Godzilla series, including King Ghidorah, Godzilla Jr., Batra, etc. Even playing Godzilla himself, not in the films, but in some promotional materials such as Adventure Godzilla. He was also in The World Sinks Except Japan as. Did he play Den Ace?
I want to say
was he the T-Rex?
I'm pretty sure he was Den Ace.
I know he was one or the other. I just don't remember which.
I'm pretty sure he was Den Ace.
Mm.
But you brought up how Tokusatsu suit actors can bring in emotion. And one scene in particular that I liked that brought in emotion was when the Calamari Wrestler had the dream about his love interest that we also learn about as the plot continues. And he wakes up with sweat and like has to wipe the sweat off. Like, I thought that was a really interesting and like good detail that they even had sweat on the suit to show that. Like, they could have just had a dry suit, but they did put sweat on him.
I mean, I like his. I mean, with that whole thing as well, even without the voice, you still also have like the moving eyes, which can help have the creature emote, especially with like put it under the right camera angles, and you'll get certain emotions. The audience will feel certain emotions from just how the eyebrows are, the massive eyebrows.
Yeah. And from here, like they start to establish, or I guess not establish, but answer the questions we have in reference to the mystery. So up until this point, they've been like, who is the Calamari Wrestler? Why does he remind people of this wrestler that passed away? We find out Taniguchi, right? That's the new wrestler's name.
Taguchi.
Aguchi? Taguchi, okay.
Yeah.
So his girlfriend was in love with this other wrestler.
Yes, Kanichi Iwata.
But because of his passing, she had to move on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something when that she first sees the Calamari Wrestler that just like it screams her past love.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the Calamari Wrestler dream about her, and we see her like talk about the Calamari Wrestler, and it's like this. It's building up to them meeting, and it's the weirdest part of the film, if I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I could look past everything else, but like the love plot in this movie is so weird. So
the squid fucks a woman. Am I wrong though?
it's implied that the Calamari Wrestler and her have a little fun in the apartment.
Yeah.
But also she's like a jerk.
Yeah.
So like she leaves Taniguchi for Taguchi.
Yes.
She leaves Taguchi for the Calamari Wrestler. Like without it, like a second thought, like, and it gets weird at the end, but we'll talk about that when we get to the
end. Yeah.
But like she just drops him.
Bring that up.
She just drops him and moves to the Calamari Wrestler.
Yeah, I mean, she says how didn't she say like the only reason was it him who said the only reason he got with her was because he wanted everything that Iwata had?
Yes.
It was him who said that?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Okay.
Because, well, he was insinuating that he was always in the shadow of him.
Yeah.
So because of that, everything that he wanted, was his. So, like, he always had to live with that. And when when he passed away, like, he could get what he wanted. But now that he's back, like...
Your usage of the word "he" is making it very confusing for anyone who hasn't seen the movie.
So, Taguchi was in the shadow of who is... Iwata. When Iwata passed away, Taguchi was able to get everything he ever wanted.
Yeah.
But upon his resurgence, that problem appears. Taguchi basically loses everything. He loses his pride from losing in the opening. He loses his girl. He loses everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you kind of feel bad for the guy. You almost want to you almost want him to beat the Calamari Wrestler.
Yeah.
And that's what creates the interesting dynamic, is because the Calamari Wrestler is the protagonist.
It's the protagonist of the film.
But you aren't entirely rooting for him.
No. Which
creates this interesting... And like I said, like the love interest, she's a jerk. She drops Taguchi like immediately. Despite the fact she was like rooting for him in the opening scene. After that, she just drifts away and goes. Yeah. So, like,
I don't think she ever. Does she ever interact with him again from this point, or?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the arguing, and then she leaves, and then gets with. But that's it.
Yeah.
So you can't really root for her. Taguchi ends up kind of being a jerk until the end. So I don't know what the thought process behind the characters was, but you never really... Like, it's a very real script. Nobody's truly the hero. Nobody's truly the villain. And even the final antagonists aren't even really villains. I mean, I guess you could like look at that and kind of pick apart the fact that it tries to follow the wrestler like concept of like not every like the wrestler in one fight might be the hero, but in the next fight he's like the one people are rooting against. Kawasaki could have been going for something like that where it depends as the fight, like it depends on which fight you're looking at.
Maybe
for your characters. But it does create this sense of interest, at least to me. It created this interest of like, okay, let's see where each of these characters go. Let's see what happens. Like I'm genuinely curious if Taguchi will beat the Calamari Wrestler and get the girl, or if the girl will fall in love and be able to live with her true love. Like there's a lot happening with what little we're seeing.
And yeah, and on top of that, we have the whole mystery of who the Calamari Wrestler's trainer is.
Right. So that's another mystery: is who is this trainer, and how did Iwata become the Calamari Wrestler? Because it eventually comes out that yes, he is the Calamari Wrestler, and later on were revealed through meditation he was brought back to life as a squid,
but he can still revert back to being a regular human.
But with that he will become weak and eventually die. That's what's insinuated throughout the film. And there's even some meta jokes while like the hype for the Calamari Wrestler rematch with Taguchi. I'm sorry. Taguchi. When I hear Taguchi, I want to think of like Higuchi, or there's another character that kind of sounds familiar to that I'm automatically
Yaguchi?
Yes. So there's too many. Too many with the same similar last name.
Sakaguchi.
So, like, a way to hype up the fight, because the fight doesn't happen until about the 50-minute mark. So there's 50 minutes of hype. And not only are they trying to explore who the Calamari Wrestler is, and the love triangle, and the fight itself, but they have to hype it up. So they have people come on, like there's shots of in the city where on the jumbotrons or on like the billboards that are like televisions, essentially, there are people who are
like not NHK, and share their opinions on this whole upcoming wrestling match and how this is the potential to be a modern classic and shape the state of modern wrestling.
Mm-hmm. And like there's some interesting cameos that appear for people in the entertainment industry from
real wrestlers to even like a magazine editor of one of the most famous wrestling magazines.
Mm-hmm. And Kawasaki would bring this trope back in The World Sinks Except Japan, because in that film he also had a lot of cameos from people in the entertainment industry who were being interviewed on television. So, like I said, you can see the birth of the Kawasaki style here.
Yeah, and then Kaiju Mono had not only a bunch of Ultraman stars, but also a fair couple wrestlers as well.
Mm-hmm. And the idea of Kaiju Mono being all about wrestling, that goes back to the Calamari Wrestler. So you can with, I would argue, any of Kawasaki's films, you can trace its influences back to the Calamari Wrestler, which is why I think it's important that we cover this film.
I mean, it's got a lot of his trademark signatures. I mean, obviously you've got the wild title and premise. You've got the wild humor. You've got the sexual humor. You've got all the references to other movies. You've got the cameos. You've got essentially virtually everything that, makes Kawasaki's films Kawasaki, but just in a less, I guess, refined form, you could say.
I don't know, because here's the thing.
I don't know if I'd say refined is the right word there, but...
So, I kind of wanted to touch on this because... So, Kaiju Mono is his best looking film. It looks the most professional. From the ones we've covered and from what I've seen. The World Sinks Except Japan was obviously shot on a digital camera. But to me, it looked like Calamari Wrestler was shot on film.
I don't know.
Or at least a better camera than World Sinks Except Japan for digital cameras.
Sure. I'd probably go for that.
The Calamari Wrestler, I thought, looked pretty decent compared to his World Sinks. And that's something I appreciated was it looked really good. It didn't look cheap. It really didn't. And my best friend, he watched a little bit of the Calamari Wrestler, and he was like, the suits look, this has to be a parody. Like, this looks awful. But one of the later suits is actually really, really good.
Yeah.
Which makes me, I would argue that the reason that the Calamari Wrestler and later on the Octopus, that we'll get into, the reason they look the way they do is because they are intended to look that way. If they wanted to make them look more realistic, they would have. But I think Kawasaki wanted to have a certain style that maybe made you a little more connected or a little more intrigued with your suited characters. Which I think is really nice. I like the idea that Kawasaki intended on your main suited characters to have this Muppet feel that made you feel for them more so than the more detailed, scarier suits.
Yeah. I mean, the eyes do play I'd say a big part in connecting with particularly the Calamari, particularly the Calamari Wrestler himself. Helped by how quite expressive said eyes are.
Right. No, so I watched the making of featurette, and in it they highlighted the suit making process. Yeah. And the eyes were all wire controlled. When they pulled them, that would be what moves the eyeballs or the eyelids. But throughout the film, those are what gives the character life. Even when he's doing nothing, those eyes are what creates his life. It's what animates him.
I think that's a very powerful detail, I'd say, for a lot of creature effects. If you want to, you can get away without having moving eyes. There are Godzilla films where the Godzilla suit can't, close its eyes, but it gets away with that. But particularly if you have a design where the eyes are such a massive part, you kind of have to focus on that a little. And that it really does bring life to characters. Like one thing, we've had the advent of like deepfakes and AI, AI like type art, and some of the biggest giveaways for specifically deepfakes are the eyes. There's just something about the way that eyes look and move that allows us to identify it, and we'll notice if something's off.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I lost half my point there.
No, so from what I'm understanding, what you're trying to get at is the eyes in quite literally every sense is what kind of makes or breaks a character's emotions.
It gives it the soul.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I was trying to get at.
And with a simple change of like eyebrow movement, you can go from having a caring character to a angry character.
Yeah.
I know, at least for Godzilla, a lot of times like the eye motion and eyelids was something that they did think about. They built a whole mechanism for it for the 64 suit in between films. I know I've heard people talk about how in modern Ultraman, they go out of their way to digitally create eyes that move, light up, and blink. In the Gamera films, the budget was so low that they needed some way to like give life to the characters. So they put lights in the eyes that would blink and turn off and turn on to symbolize, hey, this character Gamera is alive, Gamera is dying. Like,
I mean, even with something like the original Ultraman, who has, doesn't exactly have much of a moving face, the mask is designed in a way where you can draw different emotions from it just from, the camera angle.
right.
So it's a very important part to all of these characters, to every characters.
Mm-hmm. And I think that especially is important for this film because they are quite literally trying to humanize.
He is the protagonist of the film.
Mm-hmm. And if your audience can't connect with him, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
And I think they connect with him pretty well because throughout the film, we end up finding out that when he succumbs to temptation and desire, he's punished and loses his ability to be the Calamari Wrestler, which could lead to his death.
I mean, on top of that, we also just get scenes with him just living his life, being a normal person, or, well,
trying to,
as normal as he can be.
Yeah. No, and that stuff, Rex, is I think some of the coolest stuff is just seeing him day to day.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And I love the little detail of like where he lives, like where the temple's located. The people there absolutely love him.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I mean, seemingly everyone loves to buy his merch, so
yeah. But speaking of that, I really wish that this movie got merch, like some Bandai figures. I would definitely buy these.
I'd definitely buy our third opponent.
I definitely would too. But before we talk about the third opponent, so both of our wrestlers are training and just trying to like get ready for the fight. Calamari is also trying to just live life now that he has the love of his life back in his life and go from there. But he never loses. When he has his near-death experience with succumbing to desire with his girlfriend, he kind of has that chosen one, or that like awakening of he needs to focus and he needs to be ready for his fight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when his trainer turns to help his opponent, which I think is just his trainer trying to make him a stronger fighter. That's the way I interpreted it. I never interpreted his trainer to be the villain. I always thought, okay, this is just him trying to build up the Calamari Wrestler because we want to see him succeed. We want to see him grow. We want to see him defy all odds and become the best.
I didn't really know what to make of the trainer because I didn't understand what was his end game with all of this.
Like I said, that's how I interpret it. Up until it's revealed at the end. Right. So the trainer tries to like antagonize Calamari Wrestler, like giving him a card and saying this will be the end and whatnot. Up until the fight happens. And during the fight, we are introduced to Calamari, of course, and when they introduce his opponent, we come to find out that he himself has turned into an octopus.
Yes.
Nobody asked questions, by the way. They just are like, what? Okay, cool.
It's all about the spectacle, man.
It's all about... It's about selling the seats.
Yeah.
And so...
And hey, I'm sure if this happened in our world, it would be a pretty iconic fight.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'd be hundreds of TikTok videos about it too.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Let's keep it to 2004, okay?
MySpace posts.
Better times. Better times.
You weren't even born yet.
Okay, and?
You don't know what better times were.
But, like, I do.
Maybe.
I do.
So...
I was born pre-2016.
Fair enough.
I like how everyone agrees that 2016 is where the world started getting worse. Every modern young person, at least.
I mean, there's a few things that happened 2016. You know, Shin Godzilla came out, and then that destroyed...
If anything, that's the best thing to happen.
Keep telling yourself that.
I will.
Okay. Going back to Calamari Wrestler, not 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So the fight begins. Squid versus octopus.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty intense fight for what it is. So the fight starts off with our octopus being the one that looks like he's going to win. The octopus puts in a lot of good blows. But towards the end, we get that like underdog moment where Calamari realizes what he needs to do, and he succumbs, rises to the occasion, and wins.
I mean, essentially, the whole last part of this fight, and then how the sequence ends, is basically just the ending of the first Rocky.
See, I Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, down to the girlfriend character literally wearing the exact same outfit as Rocky's girlfriend.
See, I've never seen Rocky, so I didn't know, but I know after the fight, Calamari's screaming for her, kind of like in Rocky.
Oh, that moment is exactly like Rocky, like literally with her in the same outfit as Rocky's girlfriend.
I was wondering, because there's a moment where Calamari later in the film is jogging, training, and I was like, I wonder if
that's 100% a Rocky reference. I mean, it was more obvious in Kaiju Mono, where they literally have
the Rocky
theme.
Yeah. No, it's obvious where Kawasaki takes his influences from.
Yes.
So after the fight, you would think it's over, And initially, it kind of feels like the film is concluding. Until we get a curveball and a third...
And the funniest scene of the movie.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people about that?
So Iwata, the Calamari Wrestler, goes on a date with his girlfriend, right? You know, they've celebrating the fight, you know, getting some dinner, walking along the street. It's a nice day, you know? And then out of nowhere, a giant crustacean man just punches him in the face, jumps him, and just absolutely just knocks his in.
And then he runs away.
Yep. Just jumps him, declares himself as the strongest fighter in the world, and leaves.
In what is probably the best suit of this, by the way. It's so detailed.
Yes. Oh, the Squilla suit is awesome.
So, you know, in some of Kawasaki's films, when the surprise, like, problem appears at the end, which is something I've noticed Kawasaki does, is there's a surprise villain at the end. Whether it's, you know, a situation or an actual character, something appears at the end.
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times it feels like, okay, I'm kind of done with the story. Like, what I'm here for is said and done, and I'm ready to conclude and move on.
Usually I would 100% agree with you on, like, I don't know if you're using that as an actual criticism or not, but, like, usually that's probably what I would think here.
But this
the
film...
introduction is so goddamn funny.
It is.
So it's just, like, where my attention's, you know, starting to wind down, where it's like, I'm like, okay, I've had my fill of this movie. I've had my fill of funny squid wrestling. It just throws that massive curveball, and I'm like, okay, give me more.
Exactly, and that's what I love, is I wasn't expecting it. And it came as a surprise, and it drew me back in, and there's roughly 30 minutes left of this movie.
Yeah.
And the film does not overstay its welcome. You know, I would think that it would start overstaying its welcome here, but it doesn't. And like you said, it's just such a big curveball out of nowhere. It works. It works. It legitimately works. And what I really love is following this, Calamari starts training and wants to beat Squilla for publicly embarrassing him.
Yeah.
And Taniguchi, right? Taguchi.
You were getting so close.
Taguchi has a change of heart, which is a little weird because, you know, Calamari is still with his girl, but he has a change of heart to help Calamari train to be the best. So the rest of the film is Calamari training and prepping for this final fight. And there's, of course,
I mean, to be fair, Taguchi does say he's only doing it so that he can fight, so that he can have one more rematch.
This is true. This is true.
But I will agree, it is still a bit odd.
It only gets weirder, though.
Yep.
So we're training, and it's the training lasts for about the 15 minutes of the 30. Maybe 20. It might be 20 of the 30 minutes remaining, because the final fight is not very long. There's not a lot of build up either. I mean, there is a few like teleprompter interviews and whatnot, if I remember correctly, but
yeah,
it's obvious that they're trying to rush to the end because they don't want to overstay their welcome.
Yeah,
they're not trying to.
I think is good.
And I think what's really good is they're not rehashing what we just saw. Sure, we witnessed Calamari like train, but now we have a different trainer and we have a different reason and everything. They change everything up, It's a completely different concept with a similar conclusion. So we finally get to the final fight. And we have Squilla versus Calamari. And Squilla is absolutely demolishing Calamari. Until...
knocking him out of even his squid form. Back to just a regular man.
Which, this is where it gets a little weird, because he can't survive without the squid form. Which is what we were told. And this is where I feel like the writing gets a little weird. Which is not bad, because it's in the last, 20 minutes. There's 5 minutes of credits, so 15 minutes of writing is where it gets weird, which is not the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Unlike Godzilla vs. Kong, the conclusion of this movie isn't too ludicrous, thankfully.
I don't know, man. I think this conclusion's a bit ludicrous.
I mean, at least it kind of makes sense. It's just kind of out of the blue.
I mean, I guess at least it's it's somewhat established.
Yeah, it is established somewhat.
And yeah.
So the thing about Squilla is he's said to be the best. The fastest, the best. He'll beat anybody.
The strongest.
The strongest, yes.
Having a very powerful punch.
So Calamari turns into his human form. And even though he's knocked out, he gets back up because of the power of the crowd, which is a nice scene. It's a very nice scene. And from there, he uses his human form to beat Squilla and win the match by tearing his opponent's arms off. Which would be fine, except what follows makes it even weirder. So Taguchi gets into the ring, and everybody's celebrating. Squilla's been defeated. When suddenly we have a new character appear, a character that has been mentioned throughout the film briefly as the god of wrestling.
Yes. Mr. Godazan.
And we're revealed that he's the father of both Taguchi, right?
Yes.
Let's go.
He is not only the father of Taguchi and Iwata, but he's also the trainer that gave him the squid and octopus forms.
So, I'll be honest, at this moment in the movie, I'm like, what? I'm with the rest of because in the movie, everybody's shocked. Because he's the god of wrestling.
Yeah, meanwhile, you and I imagine you are just sitting there thinking, what's even happening anymore?
Yeah, it gets really weird, and then you have kind of a Star Wars situation where the brothers both ended up sleeping with the girl.
The same girl, yeah.
Which is a little weird. It gets weirder when you think about one did it with tentacles. The love plot in this movie is very not normal.
But in a way, maybe it wouldn't be very Kawasaki for it to be normal.
This is true, and to be honest, the love plots in Kawasaki films are always the weird parts. They feel like they're the most parody of all of his titles to me, is his love.
I feel like they're kind of the weakest link of his movies.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Both in this, Kaiju Mono and World Sings Except Japan.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also forgot to bring up that there's an Ultraman sound effect when Squilla gets his arms ripped off.
Was there?
Yes, it's
I don't remember.
the Antlar sound effect.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I think I remember that.
I heard that. I was like, oh, I know that. I
mean,
know
there
that.
were. I could have sworn there was like another Showa sound effect in there. Like, I want to say it was an explosion sound, but I don't remember where that would be. So maybe I'm thinking of something else.
I feel like I know what you're talking about. I definitely feel like I do.
I feel like I remember hearing it's that somewhere in the film.
Mm-hmm. So the three end up hugging, and everybody's a champion, and everybody lives happily ever after. Maybe they all three have a relationship with the girl. I don't know. And maybe
no, that would be interesting.
Maybe one of them dies from the like deadly disease that the squid form was keeping him from dying with. The movie kind of just doesn't. At the end, it doesn't follow through with its establishments and just ends on a positive note and doesn't explore the questions that I had, which is kind of a negative. I'm not a huge fan of dropping the pre-established rules and problems. But it does have a catchy end song. The end song I thought was pretty catchy.
It was okay.
So this, for Kawasaki's first like feature length full theatrical film, because it did get released theatrically, it was released in 15 theaters across Japan.
Yeah,
I think it's one of his strongest films.
Yeah, oh definitely. Like, where would you rank this compared to the other two films that we've covered so far?
I would definitely put this one on top. I'd put Calamari Wrestler, then World Sinks Except Japan, and Kaiju Mono. Something I've kind of noticed with Kawasaki is as it got easier to make these movies, they seem to get a little lazier. It's obvious he was working very hard on Calamari Wrestler. And I kind of miss that work ethic in his following films. I think World Sinks Except Japan does still have effort, but by Kaiju Mono, I kind of start to feel like it's meant to be funny. I mean, the fact that Mono it's giant monster thing, like that's the translation of the movie's title.
Yeah,
it's like,
I mean, to be fair, Kaiju Mono just kind of has the whole issue of not being very funny at all. But like a couple gags here and there.
Right. But I feel like some of those gags are done better in Calamari Wrestler with the wrestling stuff.
Oh, I think all the humor here, it's clearly a lot of the same style of humor as in his other films like Kaiju Mono, but here it just feels executed better. The craziness, I was actually laughing, at times where the movie clearly wants me to laugh.
Right.
Whereas Kaiju Mono, I'm just staring blankly at the screen, except for like the two to three moments where I did get a chuckle,
Or you gasp because you see a cameo that you love.
You see, I don't gasp. I'm just like, oh, cool. He's in here. Based.
Yeah. And I think part of it too might just have been, so Kawasaki co-wrote this film with Masakazu Migira, Migira, who he had worked on Migira. He was the co-writer for World Sinks Except Japan as well. He also did Death Kappa, both movies we've covered. But he worked on a lot of Ultraman. He worked on Gridman, Heisei Ultra 7, Ultraman Company, Tiga Gaia. He did Busca Busca, Neos Cosmos, Ultra Q Dark Fantasy.
Was he the head writer for any of those, or
No, he just worked on uncredited episodes.
Okay.
He also worked with Kawasaki on Monster X Strikes Back, Earth Defense Widow, Outer Man, and Monster Seafood Wars. And I think partly why the comedy works, and I think it worked in World Sinks Except Japan too, and we talked extensively about the writing in that movie, how well it was done, is I think these two together can create pretty good scripts for comedies. I know I've said I'm not a fan of Monster X Strikes Back, but I also haven't seen it in like 10 years, so I don't know if that still holds up, or if I'm able to come to terms that it's a parody. I don't know. But this writing duo, I think, created at least two really good scripts. And, Death Kappa suffers from a lot, but I think it's also partly because of the intentions of that film. That wasn't something like Kawasaki, who's trying to create entertainment and comedy at the same time. Death Kappa was more of a parody in its own regards.
Yeah.
Its producer for Calamari was Shantaro Kanai, who was also the producer on Executive Koala, World Sinks Except Japan, and Goalkeeper Crab, and Pussy Soup. All of those are Kawasaki films. Again, like World Sinks Except Japan's a great one. I think Executive Koala is a very good Kawasaki film.
Maybe I'll have to watch that sometime.
And it wouldn't be Kawasaki without Akio Jisoji being the supervisor for this film as well.
Yeah. It also wouldn't be Kawasaki without having Eiichi Kikuchi in it. Was he in World Sinks, actually? I don't remember. He was definitely in Kaiju Mono.
Who was he?
He's Goda's slash the suspicious the suspicious trainer. He was a suit actor for Ultraman Jack and 7.
Gotcha. Yeah.
He was like a military guy in Kaiju Mono.
Yeah, he was with Ben Furuya.
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head if he was in Monster or The World Sinks Except Japan.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong then.
I wrote down Nambu Tordan, who was in Kamen Rider Ghost, Kabuto O'Beetle, and Kagemusha.
I mean, the one actor I recognized immediately was Lou Oshiba, who is he's the head of the main wrestling club that Taguchi signed up for, because he was most recently in Kamen Rider Black Sun as not Shinzo Abe, and he was also in Kamen Rider Drive, I believe, in one episode. But he was also in Garo Goldstorm as one of the horrors.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We also had Nomaru Abe, who was in Kaiju Mono. He's also in Ghost Cat Rhapsody, Nezura 1964, the upcoming Hoshi 35, Earth Defense Widow, Monster X Strikes Back, Ultraman Mebius, World Sinks Except Japan, Nexus, and Gamera Guardian of the Universe, and also made appearances in Tika Gaia. or Dyna and Tiga and Dyna the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a lot of Kawasaki regulars in this film.
Yeah.
Granted, they weren't regulars at this point, but they would end up becoming regulars.
The soon-to-be regulars.
Yes. So, I mean, overall, like, where would you... Did you say how you would classify, like, rate these films?
You see, Kaiju Mono is definitely straight to the bottom. Straight to the bottom as it was last time. From here, I think it's a bit more difficult because I like both Calamari Wrestler and World Sinks Except Japan fairly closely, but I think I might give Calamari Wrestler the slight edge, purely just because I thought it was legitimately funny.
Mm-hmm.
And come on, that whole scene with Squilla attacking him on the street. That was just too good.
It becomes funnier when you realize it's his dad.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, I definitely think Kawasaki came out of the gate with a really good film.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has produced some stuff since then that have held up to that standard. I think World Sinks Except Japan is probably his best written.
Yeah, I'd agree with like World Sinks probably being the best written of the films that he's done.
But that's also because I like it for its non-comedy parts, because that's the stuff that interests me. So
World Sinks, I definitely think is more interesting to talk about because of that aspect of it, and just everything that's sort of going on with that movie politically.
Right. Whereas, like, Calamari Wrestler, it definitely feels like they're making jokes of, like, the wrestling scene and whatnot, but they're not like trying to dive into the politics of this.
No. It's a simple story. It's not entirely nothing, like how they talked about Kaiju Mono being essentially meaning nothing. There's things there. It's just not nowhere near as much of a focus as in World Sinks.
Right. But I mean, overall, I definitely understand why Calamari Wrestler has become kind of a cult hit. It's definitely not like well known, but it's his best known from what I've understood of his earlier works. Kabuto Beetle and Goalkeeper Crab haven't even received Western releases as of yet. I mean, stuff like Earth Defense Widow hasn't seen a US release. Outer Man saw a streaming release, but nothing more than that.
I thought it got a Blu-ray.
It did not. Not in the States. Really?
I could have sworn I saw a Blu-ray for sale.
No, the only.
Am I being gaslit?
No,
again?
I swear to God, because I own all of his films that are available, which are Calamari Wrestler, Executive Koala, The World Sinks Except Japan, Monster X Strikes Back, Attack the G8 Summit, Kaiju Mono, Monster Seafood Wars, Super Legend God Hikoza, and I want to say that's it. It's
damn, yeah, even looking it up, I seem to be wrong. Screw you.
It's unfortunate because I would love to see these other films of his get releases. Kabuto Beetle and Goalkeeper Crab, especially since those are his earlier works that never got released. Oh, I also forgot the Rug Cop. The Rug Cop got a release. You also have Pussy Soup, Most recently, you have President Tanuki, Planet Prince 2021. He has an upcoming film titled UFO he's releasing.
Yeah.
So, like, I would love to see more Kawasaki. I know Synapse Films has worked with him. I know Sentai Filmworks has SRS Cinema, and even Media Blasters. But I don't know what it is. It seems like now nobody's really interested in licensing his non-kaiju work. But even to that, there's still like Earth Defense Widow and Outer Man that have not seen physical releases.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would argue Super Legend God Hikosa's not kaiju. So it's henshin.
I can't comment.
So, I mean, and I think Calamari Wrestler, like, it started something that I think is synonymous with Kawasaki, and that's the humanoid animal series, because you have Calamari Wrestler, Kabuto O Beetle, Executive Koala, Crab Goalkeeper, Pussy Soup, President Tanuki. Those, like, that's in of itself is a box set that, like, is waiting to happen of Kawasaki's humanoid animal series. And I think he's even labeled them as such. Like, they're all in a series of these concepts, I guess you would call it.
But here's the thing: when are we getting the Calamari Wrestler versus Executive Koala? That's the question.
I think you should watch Executive Koala.
I probably should.
I actually definitely would recommend it. So the name of the series is actually Absurd Animal Series, which includes the films that we've brought up: Calamari Wrestler, Crab Goalkeeper, Executive Koala, President Tanuki. So I'd love to see these films get more acknowledgement, because I think Executive Koala is a great example of one that jumps over genres that you don't expect. The Calamari Wrestler, I think, it's not...
It defies expectations.
It does. And that is the most interesting aspect, is it doesn't fall into any stereotype. It birthed its own genre. I was reading in my research that Crust, the British film, it was really well received in Japan, and that's what birthed the idea of the absurd animal stuff. And Kawasaki is one of the biggest contributors to that genre. With his works. And his movies have a charm. Those absurd animals films have a charm to them that is much appreciated, at least for me.
I mean, I definitely enjoyed this film. I think between this and World Things Except Japan, I'm definitely getting a lot better of an impression on Kawasaki than what Kaiju Mono gave me. So,
and the unfortunate part is, with this, we're down to one more week, and then we're done with April. So we can only cover one more Kawasaki film, and then we'll have to hold off.
And it's crazy. It's even crazier too, because for us, April has only just begun.
Yeah, but it's begun it's been a very long beginning. Very long.
Yeah, for both of us.
Yeah. So, with that being said, stay tuned for next week's episode where we will conclude Kawasaki Month with something, I think kind of a combination of two of the films we've covered this April. And if you guys liked this Kawasaki Month, let us know, because I would love to cover Kawasaki next year in April too, if the schedule permitted, because we still have at least another month full of Kawasaki we could do.
I mean, even if we don't do another month, I'm sure we'll cover more Kawasaki films eventually.
Mm-hmm.
We covered Dark Water this year, so
yeah. I would like to eventually get to the point where we've covered all of Kawasaki's films that we can. So, well, I feel like, I mean, we haven't hit 2 hours yet, but we're getting close. So I feel like we could wrap things up here, so people can get moving on. Why don't you let the lovely people at home know where they can find you, Rex?
Oh, gladly. Dear listeners, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, on Instagram, Rex_Xeno. And if you want to check out some of my writing, go check out the Tokusatsu Network.
And all of these links can be found in the description below in our link trees, just to let you guys know.
Yes.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter at ET13Productions, on Instagram at ET13Productions, or on YouTube at ET13Productions. I also write for Kaiju Ramen Media. You can go to kaijuramenmagazine.com and check out my articles. I actually published one of the only English news reports on Kawasaki's President Tanuki when it got announced for its premiere. You can also purchase issues of Kaiju Ramen Magazine where I have contributed, whether it be an interview or an introduction to a franchise or an overview of a movie or franchise. So definitely check those out. As I said, all of this can be found in the descriptions below. Moving on, if you want to support the podcast, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. If you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, I don't. Kinda, not really. That's a lie.
He's lying.
I am using a MacBook Pro as we speak. You can rate us on Spotify. If you want to stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, tweet us and follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you, you can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com. All lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. Recently, we did have a little bit of a listener feedback in our Discord server, which I'll be bringing up in a little bit, from user Jurgen. He said that he has noticed some of our episodes are lengthy, which isn't a bad thing, but it does mean sometimes that he ends up listening to half of it and then has to remember to pick it up another time. So in a way, it sometimes feels like 2 episodes. And he says tangents can make podcasts great, so thank you, Jurgen, for giving us some lovely feedback. We love going on tangents. We talk for way too long, and I get way too little sleep.
Goofy or Elijah, I swear.
We also have a Teespring store. Eventually we'll have original artwork on there, but until then, you can have our awesome logo. Not the one that you'll see on the podcast square, but 2 of variations of that logo. If you'd like to chat with us or chat with people that relate to you on similar things, check out our Discord server. Recently, we had a conversation about, it looks like April Fools. As Rex mentioned, we are recording this ahead of schedule because of the crazy schedule we are about to have. So, yes, the conversation was about April Fools and the potential for what was a joke and what was not today, or I guess yesterday now, from the official accounts related to Godzilla and all things kaiju and tokusatsu. It's a great community full of great people, a lot of great conversations on there. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you could be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusives to the channel like bloopers for episodes or minisodes talking about news or other subjects. We also have an interview with Mechagodzilla designer Jared Korchevsky on the channel. Probably butchered his last name. I apologize once more.
You definitely did, I'm sure.
A huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and all the content we upload. As I mentioned before, his links can be found in the description below. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out to Danny DeManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Gratton Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS for composing the music for our theme song. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt, there's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. And not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.